Hey, welcome to Perspective Shift. We have Carrie Kohles with us today. You're coming from Montana, right?
Yes.
Right
Great
on.
Falls, Montana.
Where in Montana?
Great Falls.
Okay,
Great
perfect. Great
Falls.
Falls. All right.
Welcome to the show,
Yeah, welcome
Carrie.
to the show.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
We appreciate
Um,
you taking the time and jumping into this conversation with us. So, Carrie reached out to us not too long ago, so we thought it'd be a great idea to bring Carrie on and kind of chit chat with us. Carrie's an artist. Um, she's a free thinker, hence the reason why she's listening to Perspective Shift. And so we thought we'd get her on the this call with us and just kind of chat all things consciousness. So, thanks so much for tuning in.
Yeah. And give us a
you're
little bit of
welcome.
your background. Obviously, are you from Montana? You grew up there?
Yep, I grew up here all my life. Um, I don't know, I've always drawn and painted. So I grew up in Great Falls, but we had a cabin in Lincoln, so that was up in the Rockies. So
Okay.
I played a lot. Great Falls is on the plains, so
All right.
it's not as pretty as whatever I think it is though, because the sky is just crazy here.
You get a
So
lot of the night sky, like you're talking like stars and whatnot.
night sky, and then it's really like our sunsets are really brilliant, and you get like these crazy, moody, cloudy skies that just go on forever. Like they call it big sky country for a reason, because it seems like it goes on for eternity.
Yeah, because
I love
the
that.
planes don't distract from the sky when mountains do, right? And
Yep.
stuff.
Right. Yeah, the mountains you kind of get a limited view. It's still
Yeah.
pretty, but you don't get the view because you're hemmed in by trees and
Yeah.
mountains and
All right.
you can't really see. But like when you get out on the plains, you can see. So there's a spot not too far away from here, like 5, 6 miles. It's a old buffalo jump that the
Okay.
Native Americans used. And when you get up there, like on a clear day, you can see all the way to the Rocky Mountain front. Like
Wow.
all like way up north. It's pretty cool.
Is it pretty remote? Do you have a lot of neighbors?
So Great Falls is a town of about 65,000 people or a city.
Okay.
So it's not too bad, but I live outside on this little ranch that I'm renting a ranch house from. So
All right.
about
See,
8 miles out of town. I prefer that.
I've been to Montana a few times. I've always liked it. It was always open spaces, like you're talking about, rolling plains, which is nice. Something for me that I've always kind of pictured is I want to be away from all the city. I want to be away from
Yep.
all the hustle and bustle. So I always am attracted to places like Montana, or you mentioned Wyoming in your email. Wyoming is
Yep.
another great one, and here in Arizona, specifically where we live, I've noticed like we're becoming quite the metropolitan city, Phoenix. I mean, oh
Oh
my
yeah.
God, our traffic is nuts now. We've got so many people moving here on a daily basis. And so it's nice to kind of have that space that you're talking about,
Yeah.
being from Montana and have, the room to roll. There's something about a lot of people in a given area and just the hive mind effect that
Hmm.
we kind of experience. And I've noticed that. I think that's why I love, and Frank, you too, like going up to Sedona and just kind of clearing and getting away from all the cell phones, all the people, all the thoughts. We're so connected on this level that we don't talk about, this
Hmm.
mental level that I feel like when you get out into the open, out into the space, you're more, you have more freedom.
Yeah. Everything becomes less important, like everyday life and politics and money and I mean because nature operates on a completely different set of rules than we do. Like we don't operate within the bounds of nature, which I think is weird. Like
Yeah.
we don't quite fit.
Yeah, because
Um
we are nature, but we're going against our very nature is what we do.
we go against it and it's weird that we do that. I've always found that strange because like that's I feel better when I'm out in nature and just watching geese do what geese do or like whatever. I
Really,
feel better.
no,
Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean there, and there's something to be said about that, especially at the top of the year. I feel that way a lot, like what we're
Mhm.
experiencing right now, just because
Yeah.
seasonal wise, it's winter, things are dying in slumber, hibernation, all of the above, and here we are in America going, no, top of the year, new year, back to work, and it's
Right?
like, whoa, 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 this is like our, what do you call them, this our circadian rhythms, or all of that stuff. Like we're just so detached from our most natural state, and it's cool to have these conversations to, so people can relate back to them and say, I know what you mean.
Yeah, exactly. I have a saying, like when I'm all worked up about a problem, and I'll usually like be staring at the river or staring outside because that's kind of my happy place. And I just always like the river doesn't give a shit
Yeah.
about what's going on right now. Like everything's just gonna keep doing what it does, and it doesn't care about my problems or the world's problems. Everything's just gonna go about its business without any of that interfering.
Yeah, and a river has always been this great metaphoric explanation for a lot of people teaching this stuff over the years. And the river just keeps flowing no matter what you do to it.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So, yeah, a lot of people are trying to control things. So if you try to control the river, it will beat you up.
Hmm.
But when you
yeah,
flow with it, it's the most amazing thing, and that's what we're learning to do. Is we are like biorhythm beings, and if we step out of rhythm, it sounds interference. It sounds clunky. And
yeah,
when you get out into nature, and nature is like the greatest symphony. That's why, like, you look at the
really.
Beethoven and the Mozarts, they were literally mimicking nature in their sounds, and they were playing through instruments that humans had to create. But they were trying to get so close to that, and that was the brilliance of it came in. And that's it. It's like, hey, you want to hear a great orchestra? Just go outside and listen to a river.
Well,
Yes,
it's
Greatest sound in
it's
the world.
funny you bring that up because your email exchange with us too, Cassie, when you were talking about the Chris that we had on from Australia, talking about that underlying symphony that we're all experiencing, this underlying music that's kind of behind everything. Um, I loved how you brought that up because it sounds like that's something that resonates with you and how you experience life.
it is. And it's always has been. And I always thought it was weird also that other people don't experience that, so like when I talk about that, most people are like, what? Like
What?
talking about, like it makes a great artist statement, but a lot of people don't get it, like understand
Feel it.
Yeah,
what I'm saying, that there's just poetry and just like I said, watching geese do whatever geese do or horses just graze all day. I don't, wind blowing in the grass. Like I can do that forever. I love to watch a sunset completely because of the color change
yeah.
Yeah.
it's through. Like if you just watch it and you just know that like the color is going to keep shifting and shifting and shifting, like that's so great. I love doing that.
Now
Well
you
said.
obviously have an artist's mind, so these type of concepts and like when you started doing like more inner requests into inquiry, when did you start that journey, or was it something you already had when you were a child?
So it's something I always had. Like I was drawing, like I love horses, so I was drawing horses when I was 5.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
beautiful work, by the way. I checked out all the
Yeah.
stuff on
oh,
you.
thank you.
Great work.
Amazing.
We're
Yeah.
going to share the link so people can take a
Yeah,
look at your
one of my
artwork.
favorite pieces is it looks like a sketching of it's kind of like a white black horse. It's mostly white. I don't know had a
What
name on
type?
it. Yeah, it was or one of her.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
looking
you
at
have
the
to show
gallery.
Yeah,
me.
I don't know if it was a sketching or a paint. I don't think it was a painting, but it was
It
just
was probably an ink because I
You do a
yes.
lot of
kind
pen
of
and ink.
developed a
All right.
real
Yeah,
affinity to ink.
that one resonated with me a lot. So
Oh, good. Good. I love that. That's the most important thing I think is like I almost view paintings as my kids or something or puppies that I have. So I want them to go to a good home that someone's going to appreciate them, not just a collector. I mean, that happens a lot where people just collect work and it just goes into a vault somewhere.
yeah,
It's
Yeah.
just bought for resale value because it's an investment, which
yeah.
is great. I mean, that's great for my name. It's great, but I'd rather someone wake up every day and look at my painting and go, "Oh my God,"
That
you know.
inspires me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. So, is this consciousness journey something that tell us about your journey and kind of where this started for you? When did the you have that kind of moment like, huh, there's more out here.
So I think I always had it as a kid because
Okay.
I was always a weird kid and not weird, but I always was left to my own devices. I'm a Gen X kid, so and I grew up out of town, so all I did was run around and play and draw and do whatever. And I always felt that. But then I think as, like you get into high school and you're supposed to be a certain thing and act a certain way and not do this and not do that. And there was a lot of expectations. Artists don't make any money. So I think I lost it for a while. And I went into interior design, did that for a while until the housing market crashed.
Mm.
And then and then I was left with nothing. No one's hiring. Um, so I started painting again. And I think that's kind of what kicked it off because a lot of it is getting out of your own way with painting.
Mhm.
Like you get really weird in your headspace about art. Like, and everybody does. Like when I talk to people, they'll be like, "Oh, I draw." And I'll be like, "Oh, you should totally like do this or, like put your stuff out there." Because they'll show it to me and they're really good. And they'll be like, "Oh my God, I can't." It's so personal that it feels like you're just too public with it,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. But anyway, so I had to work through a lot of that. So I kind of started on like a self-improvement thing. And then I think I watched What the Bleep Do We Know? And my mind got blown. I
Yeah.
was
Yeah,
like, wait,
I love
what?
that. Yep.
And then
It's like something going
started,
off in you, going, wait, this is what is this?
yeah. But it
I
made
know it's
sense
fun.
to me, but I was like, this is not anything I've ever heard before.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I've always heard Walt Disney say, like, you should believe. And I
Mhm.
got that, but then, like, it put believe in a whole different context for me. So then I started down that road. Like, I found Abraham Hicks and
Yeah.
I started meditating. It's kind of been a long, long journey. I'd say I started probably really started in about 2011,
Okay.
and it was kind of stops and starts. And then I did have like one meditation that was really crazy. Like I
Tell us about it.
it it was weird. Um it was just started out as a normal meditation, like and I started feeling really expansive, and then a unicorn. Like I saw a unicorn and then felt myself falling. Like I was really falling backwards because I was sitting, but it seemed like it took me like 15 minutes to actually fall backwards. I don't remember a lot of it. I just remember the feeling of it. And then I came out of it and I was just totally, I didn't even know what to do with it. I didn't even know what to say to people, like, or to how to talk about it. Like, because everybody's going to be like, you're crazy. Like, what are you talking about?
Was it like kind of like a flood of download, like
Kind
information
of, yeah,
type
like
of thing, or was it
almost
more?
too much to comprehend. And then it's weird to say this, but shortly after that, like my entire life fell apart. Like
Yeah,
in
really?
2019, like everything. Like my ex-husband and I owned a Snap-on Tools franchise
Mhm.
that went under, and then COVID happened, got divorced, like had to file bankruptcy,
Yeah.
and that was really hard. And I had a really hard time with that for a little while until one day I was sitting there and I was doing the why is this happening? And then I was like, oh, you asked for this though. You asked for change. And you can't get change without some major
Change. Yeah.
change. But you don't know that when you're asking it, like that, like for everything to be the way or set right. Actually, that's what I feel like it is. I feel like it's setting me back where I should have been, you
Yeah.
know, instead of because I had like before that I had like the big house and I was really, really busy and like I was really busy. I had no time. None. I was stressed. I was actually happy that some of it went away just because it was way too much. It was way too much.
Yeah.
I was just stressed out all the time and I wasn't happy. I didn't know why I wasn't happy because I had all the things I should want and everybody should want,
Yeah.
Hmm.
but still wasn't happy, So then
I hope you know, just you sharing this with for people, like how much this will resonate with
I
others.
hope so. I
Yeah.
hope so. Because like
That's why we have
things
these things.
happen that are bad, and it seems bad on the surface, but I think in the end it's good or we learn something from it. Like you can't evolve without major change. Like there's no point in evolution if everything's great.
Yeah.
You know, like if your life is perfect, why would you evolve? Why
Mhm.
would you learn anything new? Why would anything change?
And the way, like, listen to your story right now, it just kind of triggered and resonated something with me and bring it back to the river. It's kind of like we're all put here to follow this path, and how we look at the path, that is entirely up to us. But at
Hmm.
times we get distracted from the river or the path. And we do that, the universe is always trying to get us back on it. And if we don't, like, so the current and the eddies will hit us if we don't really focus. And when we get to the place where we completely ignored our path, this is when what we call the world came crashing down around us. That is the gift.
Hmm.
Pain is like a siren in my house going off, letting me know there's smoke in the house. So the siren isn't the problem. It's allowing me to know something is wrong for me to address it.
Yes.
We somehow, and I look at this more lightly and like fun, like we're in a hidden camera show
Hmm.
and someone's messing with us. And if you buy into it, you're like, son of a, but
They got me.
you're like, you know something's
You got
wrong.
me.
And when everything falls around you, you start to laugh because like, yeah, I was listening to what everyone else said, because it might have been somebody's path to have the $1 billion in their bank account, but it's not everyone's path. It's not made that way because everyone's coming in. You know, we have all individual stories, but collectively, 8 billion of us together have one overarching story. But we
Right.
only need one of Kerry in it, one of Frank, and one of Mike. I don't need duplicates of me. That would drive my wife nuts. You know, if
That
there
that would
was two
definitely.
of me, you know, maybe she could train one and leave the other to the.
Yeah, right.
But that's how I look at it. And I think right now I'm noticing, like I've noticed in my life and others around you and yours, is it's it's coming to the understanding. It's not about like, okay, giving things away. It's about this isn't really, I was chasing something
Hmm.
that wasn't designed for my particular story.
Yeah.
It's the art was and sitting there. It doesn't mean you won't live in $1 million ranch at some point. It doesn't mean that. It's just that if it comes, great.
Yeah.
Like
And
think
if it
about
doesn't, then it
what
doesn't.
state is your mind in when you sit down in front of a canvas or whatever medium you use to do your art. Like you go blank, right? Like I know that with me for writing, I have to go blank, and then whatever comes out of my head, I just jot down, even if my other side, this is not making sense. I'm like, none of this makes sense
Hmm.
until you write it down, and then oh, that's weird.
And
So
then it starts to fall into
what like,
place.
do you have a method or a process, or do you just go there when it comes to?
Um, I can usually, well, so like mentally, I can usually go there. Like, even if I don't feel like it, I usually get hooked in once I start. Like 10 minutes later, then I'm just like in it.
Yeah.
But my method is usually like I sketch it out on my iPad first because I call that drawing without consequences because
Yeah.
you can just hit an undo button. Like, it's no big deal. So I usually sketch it out. I usually have a feeling or I don't know. Sometimes it's weird because sometimes like they start as a pre-plan, like I'll have a title and I know everything, and sometimes it's just kind of like a really general idea, or like I just like the curve of that horse's neck, or
Mhm.
Yeah.
it's kind of weird. But the thing that happens is that you can plan all day long, but once you sit down and get to it, uh, sometimes it changes. Sometimes it turns out completely different, and you have to let it. Like if it's when you fight that when things go terribly wrong. And I've had many mistakes. Like I've been painting for a long time and still can screw up a painting like nobody's business. Like especially if I'm in a weird state of mind or if I get too hung up with what I think other people will think or but if I can just stay like in that zone where I can kind of like hear my intuition or that other voice that is like, maybe this should be color instead, or like put a line here. Um, that's usually when they turn out really great, you know. And some of the fastest ones I do are the best ones because I don't have time to think about it. I don't let it rest in between, so I can't overthink it.
Yeah. You're in that flow.
I was a
Yeah.
songwriter too, and I remember experiencing that. Some of the best songs poured out, onto paper in a matter of 5 minutes.
If
Some
only
of the
everyone
best.
could be that way.
You
Like,
know,
and it probably could if I could get out of my head.
well, it's funny too hearing you describe, the way you paint your art, etc., and just what a great analogy that is for, this manifestation that we all call reality,
Yeah.
If only we could kind of get out of the way of the thinking mind, the analytical, the side of the brain that's measuring, judging, categorizing, all of this how beautiful, if we allowed that imagination, that right side of brain to really flow,
Yeah.
and that moment you're talking about, that is the present moment. And this is what so many great teachers, gurus, speakers, lecturers, talk about, is this present moment. And it's so simple, yet it's so elusive at times. And
Yeah.
it's something we're striving for when there's nothing to strive for. It simply exists. It's this underlying hum
Yeah.
that's around us at all times. And that's what I try to remind myself is that there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere, nothing to achieve or to get. It's
Right.
here at all times. And it's sometimes it's like so simple that it's difficult. And I feel like
Yes.
that, and it's funny because you can see how that mirrors with what you were just describing with like your
Yes.
art and how things, pop or what have become your favorites. It's like, it's it's this fine line that we're all learning to kind of walk.
Yeah, and it can be hard at times. Like I found a lot of times I'm like, how can I can achieve this so easily painting, but like in other parts of my life, not so much.
Yeah.
Like because I am a bit of a control freak. I do
Yeah.
like to like have my hands and like know what I'm doing and you know. So surrender is a hard one for me. Like it's a sometimes it has to be beaten into me. Like I like to take the hard way a lot
Right.
of times.
I know what you mean. I do the same type of thing. Sometimes I'm like, man, you really like putting yourself through it,
Yeah,
buddy.
really, like, why are you doing this? Like, just let it go.
Yeah.
That is a beautiful journey. I like how you kind of played into that because when you're doing your art, you flow, but then when
Mhm.
we step out of it, we tend not to. And I think that's the thing is we always want to be an artist, but not always having to paint or draw at the moment in time. And that is the thing I'm always inquiring about. Yeah, when I go to the gym, everyone feels good when they're sleeping. We know that.
Right.
You're not having a good experience. You don't even know you have an experience. Okay, everyone could say, okay, Saturdays if you have off from work, but why is Saturday and Monday any different? That's the
Right.
thing I always inquired into, and it's because of the preset of judgment of what's supposed to happen or being pulled at. And I'm like, yeah, we still have to work, but the energy flow is what I look at. We've always put the cart in front of the horse. And you were talking about with your artwork, making a plan. All right,
Hmm.
plan will get you in front of the canvas, but if you don't let go of the plan, the cart is going to be very cumbersome to the horse because the horse has
Yeah.
to push the cart. And you can make that move, but when you put the horse, so how we feel, what state am I in, and then express it. And that's what artists do.
Yeah.
Artist tries to explain to people how they feel inside by painting, writing music, writing words. And that's why, like, for me, when I looked at that one painting or ink painting you did, I'm like, it resonated with me because it's like I understood the artist without even meeting you.
Hmm.
Yeah, I read your email, but that was very little. And it's like, wow, there's a connection here that that person somehow created something in the outside world that when I looked at it, I felt it.
Connected.
Hmm.
I felt connected to what you were saying, not that it was just a horse per se.
Yeah.
It was something more than that. And that's kind of like why it resonates with me. So there was a frequency pattern you put out there that I looked at and I'm like, damn. Because that's like, it took you, I don't know, how long did it take you to do that painting, say?
If I think I know what one you're talking about. And I think that one was like 2 hours because it's
Oh,
not very
I would
big.
have
It was
been
like
way
a
longer.
12
I
by
know the one you're
12.
talking about.
So what you did in 2 hours, it took me 2 seconds to get into. So that's a beautiful about artists. Like if I write a book, it could take me a year, but could take someone like a day and a half to read it.
Hmm.
Right.
That's the implication of what we do.
Yeah.
So so what you did in 2 hours, yeah, I didn't, you allowed me to do it in 2 seconds. Just a second,
Feel
my
that
eyes.
same
Yeah,
feeling.
I love that.
the light coming back. And that's the brilliance of it. It's like, that's the efficiency of life.
I like how you
Yeah.
called it an energy pattern too, Frank, because that's exactly what
Mhm.
this experience is.
Yeah.
Like that was an energy mark left, you know, and,
Yes.
and you were able to pick up on that and feel it. It's not just the details, but it's like what Carrie's intent was, what the feeling was at the time, the state, and that resonated. And there's so much of that out there in our world, and we don't talk about it. In
No.
fact, we pretend that doesn't exist. If we can't see it, touch it, smell it, feel it, then it's not real and it doesn't exist. But that could not be any more changing than in our current environment, and that's what's so cool
Yeah.
about the podcast that we're having today,
Yes.
the content that's out there in the world. There's people who have always felt this, known this for a long time, and now we're creating an environment where this can be discussed.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
we're entering that age of Aquarius. Things are changing, and I think people can really feel that because for the first time ever, I feel like people are thirsting for authenticity in a way that we never have before. And we're like so fed up and tired of like the plastic. Oh yeah, this is how it is. All right, cut, take that again. That's not good. We gotta have a better take for the audience. We don't want that perfect take. We want the authenticity. We want the realness. We want to feel that energy signature that you put onto paper that Frank resonated with.
Yeah. And like you mentioned earlier, like the documentary, What the Bleep Do We Know, is now validating it through the understanding of what we call quantum physics, is a
Yeah.
science.
Right.
That it's kind of nice to have a logical basis to it because,
Yeah.
but every logical base came out of my experience. And then I had to, like Einstein, when he kind of understood E equals MC squared and a couple other of his things he published, he had to experience it prior to then. So you had the experience of the horse prior to the 2 hours it took you to translate it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's the beautiful thing about time right now, and just the fact that you and I can have a conversation, and you're in Montana and I'm in Arizona.
I love that. I know.
Pretty cool.
It shows you that it's like, what's going on, you
Mm.
know?
Well, and that's
Pretend.
the great thing about this time period. Like, there's a lot of things going on in the world, but at the same time, like that we get to do this, that we can talk about these things even like
Yeah.
200 years ago, we would not be talking about
Oh,
them.
we'd be
No.
burned at the stake.
We
That's
burn.
witchcraft. That's
Yes,
Yeah.
we would be in
sorcery.
big trouble. Like, and I love the old West, but
Me too.
at the same time, like I realized, like as a woman in the old West, I would not, things would not be good for me. Like,
Not have liked it.
Not at all.
no, like, so now, like, there's so much freedom. We get to express so many things. Like, we get to do what we want, follow our path, how we see fit. It's like we couldn't be more free than we are right now.
Yeah, because we're following nature. We're following because we are nature, but we're following our higher or our own natural frequency.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The natural state of everyone is peace and happiness. And people are like, how do you know that? And I'm like, when you're in peace and happiness, you're never trying to get out of it, are you? And like, no. So that's your natural state. It's the disruption that wants you to get back to that. So you know your natural state when you're in it, you don't want to leave it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's the natural state. So and now it's kind of like so Mike and I try to figure out ways to pull different people talking about this in different modalities into getting people to that state. But the state, like you said, you just did a meditation one day and fell into it.
Mm-hmm.
You're
Yeah,
not
it was.
like, okay, today I'm gonna find unicorns.
Yeah.
It's like
I'm gonna have this
Yeah.
great experience. This
And then,
whole
yeah, I remember afterwards, like the next couple weeks after I meditated, I was almost trying to, like, I was almost expecting it to happen again, or like, I don't know if I was trying to make it happen because it didn't freak me out, but it was just kind of, I didn't know what to do with it. But you can't go in expecting things like that are going to happen. Like you
Always
just,
talks about this. You're like the least when I go into something with no expectation, that's when I have the most profound experiences.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's something Frank has told me for years.
It's hard to do though. Like it's
Yeah.
hard not to get in your head about it. It's hard not to try to like plan, you know.
That's what we've always kind of done. We
Mhm.
like work these scenarios up in our head about, this big presentation I have to give or these people that I'm going to meet that are going to change my life. This outside world is going to do it for me. We've like totally been taught that shit our whole freaking life.
Yeah.
And so we
Yeah.
kind of build things up like that, and I think that's a big reason why, we have the experiences that we do, is to remind us that no, no, actually what's going on is spontaneous.
Mhm.
Some of the greatest things are just this spontaneous in the moment. Holy shit, I never could have, fathomed that could happen. Most would call it a miracle. There's miracles happening all over the place, every given moment, every day. And
The
it's like,
fact that
wow,
the sun comes up, my God.
yeah,
It's like,
the
Yeah.
food,
yeah,
we digest. I mean, there's just so
yeah,
many things that are we would call quote unquote miracles that we don't look at like a miracle.
Right.
Oh, that's normal. And it's funny how we do that. I wanted to bring up one thing too that you mentioned. I feel like a lot of people went through a huge, including myself, like a transition period during that 2019, 2020
Oh.
pre-COVID, COVID type of thing.
the whole world
The
did.
whole world,
Yeah.
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 That was
I
a
noticed that amongst friends and family.
I
Like
just wanted to,
everybody's life
bring that up
changed.
and get kind of your thoughts. So, I mean, like, as you were going through this, I mean, that's a lot of change on a personal level, a business level, a family level, financial, everything. It seemed like was in flex, at that
Mhm.
time for you. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I think a lot of people can resonate with it.
Once I got past the asking why and had answered that, like that I asked for it, then I was just, obviously I was scared. Obviously I didn't know what was going to happen. But I just said, you need to look at this like you're 18 again,
Yeah.
and I was 40 something at the time for, I think, no, I just turned 40. I've turned 40 in 2019.
Okay,
Okay.
gotcha.
So I was like, you need to act like you're 18 again, or take this like you're 18, starting all over or starting from scratch. But now you're 40, so you're not an idiot. So
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
experience behind you.
You're a
yeah,
smart
I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah.
you can do it the way you want to do it. I can take it the way I want to take it. And so, I had to go, I had to make, hard choices. Like I couldn't do art full time anymore. So that sucked. But I was like, go work jobs that you want to work, though. Don't just go take a job because you need money. So I started working on ranches.
Oh,
Nice.
right on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of fun experiences doing that. Like got
I
to go to
always
a lot of
I
places.
always fantasize. I'm
Something
from New
inspiring.
York. I always fantasize about working on a ranch.
Hell yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's great. I mean, it can be not fun, like it's
Yeah, I think it's
you're
the ruggedness, the uncomfortableness is what I I chase, or
Mhm.
I shouldn't say
yeah.
chase. I meld into. I like discomfort on the physical plane. I like that. Like I don't know why. It's just who I am.
That's how I am too. Yeah, I'm always, yeah, chasing discomfort and then going, why do I do this? But at the same time, like when you go outside and it's 20 below, like obviously that's terrible. But
But like,
sometimes like the winter sunrise is so amazing, or it's so quiet during winter. Like I like going outside when it's really cold because everything's really silent. Like it's weird how all sound stops
yeah,
when it's cold.
but
Like
like,
right now it's -6.
Holy
yeah, but
crap. I didn't know it was that
like,
cold.
isn't it like just running outside, even if it's like 2 seconds, it does something to you.
Yeah.
Discomfort, and we know this in the physical world, when you allow discomfort, or when I say you choose discomfort, because you can't choose all discomfort, there's a growth in that. You
Hmm.
know, yeah, like you step outside and like -6. I'm like, it does something to your physiology. Yeah, obviously the way the body's built, you can't maintain there for too long unless you've really worked on some breathing, Shaolin monk type breathing technique. But nonetheless, it's not everyone's journey.
Even then.
Yeah, but even that, but it's just amazing to like go out there and then come back in and feel that contrast. But
Hmm.
what's amazing is there's no thinking. It's pure experience.
Right. Yeah, because you're out there and it's cold and you got to do what you got to do.
You know it's cold. You don't like analyze, is it cold, you know? And that's the
Right.
point of life. I think life, the more people get into what we call the experiential part of it, it's they're in state of joy. But what blocks them from the experience is thinking, should this be happening? Should this not be happening? What have you? And I'm like, we don't know. But just like when you sit in front of a canvas, you don't know, but
Uh-uh.
something moves you, and next thing you know, you have a buffalo or a horse or whatever. Yeah, and it's like, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
And
that's just
you don't know.
no.
I mean, and there's a lot of things going on in the background I always feel that I don't know about, that then will present themselves. Like I didn't know I was going to be on here till a couple of weeks ago,
Yeah.
like, and that
Right.
was unforeseen. I did not have that on my list of things that I thought were gonna happen. And I think acceptance, like if
Yeah,
it's discomfort and like you don't like it, well, it's happening anyway. So the or the faster you accept it, the easier it's gonna be. Like that. Sometimes if I'm gonna go do something that I don't want to do or that's really gonna suck,
Mhm.
I just accept that it's gonna suck. Like it's fine.
yeah,
Like it's that pushing against and saying, I should be happy, this I should like doing this. No, I don't. I don't like doing it, but I'm gonna do it and that's how it is. Like
yeah. Funny, I was just talking to Mike about that. Like, we came up about like sickness or whatever. But I remember as a child when I wake up in the morning and I was really sick, and I'm like, you're feeling this real tense pain in your body, and it's not until your mom said, "Hey, you're staying home from school." All of a sudden, the pulling of me having to get out of bed just disappeared, and it's like I felt amazing. I was still sore throat, still everything. It's because I didn't accept, I mean, allowed it to happen. I wasn't fighting it.
hmm
So it doesn't mean that the sickness went away right away, but it was the tension, like this can't be happening. I have to go to school type of thing. I have to go here. It's that mind resistance.
yeah.
The physical world has resistance, so there's going to be discomfort in that. But I don't want the mind to add into that resistance. So it's like when you go with it, it's like, hey, it's not too bad. I
Mhm.
learned
Yeah.
something. Yeah,
Yeah. It's a lot easier if you just accept it and stop saying this shouldn't be happening, it's
I
happening.
remember that in my journey too. This shouldn't be happening to me. This ought not to be this way. Those are all such common things that go through our heads, and it's so funny how we allow ourselves, to play in that. For years, I did that for years, and it's tiring, man. You don't realize how much energy you're expelling, and losing, tussling with the mind all day long.
Yeah. It can be a little bit too much to just fight your mind all day long. I mean, and I'm not perfect, so I still do it, like to some extent about a lot of things, but like it gets easier and easier as you go. Like I think it's just about recognizing it when you're doing it too.
Yeah,
Like when
having the
you're
awareness.
pushing.
and that's the great thing about like having people like you on a podcast, because a lot of times, they believe like people watching them like, oh, they were born that way, or
It's different for
yeah,
them.
it's like when you see somebody at the level where you think you should be achieving. I'm like, life is one step at a time.
hmm
And when people talk about their stories, how they got to this place, it actually helps people to let go that they're not doing anything wrong. That's just exactly how it is.
Yeah.
In the past, when you would see people that are deemed to be highly successful, we only seen them on the red carpet, so to speak.
hmm
Hadn't seen. Now we're starting to hear their stories. I'm like, wow, I don't know if I would like that.
Hmm.
You know, or like you see the people that are like, yeah, I still have to remind myself every day. I can easily step off my path. I could still go into my head every day. So that part, like people are like, why does that happen? I'm like, well, because it makes me have to focus, and there's nothing greater than unadulterated focus on my energy, not on I need to get this done. So
Right.
my main focus, like, oh, my energy's off. There's a myriad of things I can do, but one of them is just let it. Like I could sit there, and if there's a cloud, I could run the other way and try to evade the cloud, or I could just sit there and keep a fixation on a spot in the sky and watch the cloud just pass.
Yeah.
It's like the direct route. But when people hear these stories, they feel like, oh my God, this is what I go through every day. And Kerry's happy. She's at peace. Yeah, so are you. You just don't think you are.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and a lot of us don't think we are. I mean, I sometimes don't think I am. Let's see. I think I had a moment last week
Yeah.
I know
that
what you mean.
I was like, what's going on? Why am I so upset?
Yeah.
That feeling, it comes up, but it's energy releasing. That's what I've realized when
Yeah.
these things kind of
That
pop up for me.
perfectly said.
I'm
Yeah.
like, this is just that energy popping up,
Yeah.
to release. I don't look at it the same way, like, oh, something's wrong. I'm like, oh,
Right.
wow, another thing to clear, another moment of clearing. And it's like, you take it easier that way, the nervous system stays more calm, and that's what I've really like learned over my journey is just how out of whack our nervous system is,
Yeah.
and how we're all so tense, tight, shallow breathing, our whole bodies, our fists, white knuckle, like all of
Yeah.
this constantly, like all day long. And we've been so manipulated through our media and television shows and all that type music, everything, to be in this really like tense kind of, fearful, oh, what's next? We're so divided, our country's so divided, all this story that we've been told and fed, and it doesn't allow us to loosen up, and it doesn't allow us to relax. And that's why we're all pounding our heads against the wall saying, what the hell's going wrong? Why is
Right.
the world in such a spot? We are not relaxing. Our nervous systems are just dying to just chill out.
And
Yeah.
that's where the inspiration is. That's where the ideas are. Is
Yeah.
when you
Yeah, you're
finally
so
like
right.
That's,
relax. That's
yeah.
where
Our most
it,
natural state.
yeah.
And to get into that state, it's instant. It doesn't have to take like, okay, how long do I have to meditate before I get there? I'm like, it doesn't work that way.
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
Like meditation, just to the way I look at it, it's just to go in to discover something. But along the way, like you completely distract yourself from all thought, and that's probably, it's very difficult to conclude why you came into that experience. Because we don't know. There's very little we know, and I'm fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
Kind
Yeah,
of.
I am too. I
Yeah.
feel like there's some things we shouldn't know right now. Like if we were supposed to know, we would know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not in front
And
of me.
that,
I don't need to
yeah, we're
know.
not ready for it, I don't think. I think I read a book once that it was fiction and it was talking about this scientist that was trying to prove God.
Mhm.
And they said if you proved God right now, the world would collapse because no one would be able to handle it,
Yeah.
No
the
one can handle.
concept, because it would be so different than what anyone could possibly think that
Yeah.
everyone would just freak out.
Yeah. And it's just
So I
like,
was like, probably true.
yeah.
I think that's why a lot of information isn't shared with us. Like,
Well,
Mm.
it's like reading a book. You can't skip chapter 5 and go back to the last chapter of the book and even understand the book.
mhm.
Yeah, and then go, whoa, what happened?
Yeah, it's like there is no race here. Energy is in
Right.
a circular form, so I don't even know on any circle where the start and beginning is.
Mhm.
So even though we live in this what we called in this physical world, it has this linearity to it, to where time is an illusion, but it's a really convincing one. It really is.
Mhm.
Um, but when you step out of that, it doesn't mean you invade it or you can shorten it up. But when you start to realize, I'm like, man, it's not even that it's being held from me. It has nothing to do with my life right now. I'm on
Yeah.
chapter 4, like chapter 8. I'll get there.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, just let it happen. Like
Yeah.
just let it unfold how it's supposed to.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that like if I stop trying to control, and I always said if I have a lot of room to move, like without being like tightly scheduled or it has to be this way and that's when things go better for me.
Yeah.
Like if I can zig and zag as I feel I need to versus like I need to turn right here and go left over here. If
That's
I
right.
just do it as I feel like it or as is needed,
Yeah.
things go way better.
Yeah, because that's our internal guidance system. It's kind of like a GPS system. When you put the destination in, the GPS will take right-hand turn and you just make the right. And if you make the right, it'll then offer up the next one. We don't have to
Right.
think about it. Like imagine the GPS is make a right-hand turn. I'm like, why am I making a right here? And then you like pull over. Imagine how arduous it would be to get
Yeah.
anywhere. So our internal guidance system, when we tap into it, it flows that way.
Yeah.
It says, do this. Okay, I'm going to do it as best I can based on whatever. And all of a sudden, it just flows. It's not even something like things will happen. It's just, it's not even something I thought would be fun, but it was the flow that generated the feeling of fun. I'm like, wow, how is doing this fun? Like there's some of the greatest fun I had as a child was sitting on the cover from my house discussing who was the best baseball player and
Right.
with my friends. And next thing you know, it's nighttime and I had to go in. And like we would talk about nothing. It was just,
Hmm.
That's the best though, just
yeah,
talking about nothing.
wow. It's like, yeah, next thing you know, holy shit, I gotta go. My parents are calling me, you
That's
know?
it.
And that's so when you talked about starting over at 18 and you ever hear that saying, I wish I knew then what I know now.
Hmm.
Because of the linearity, we think that's not possible. But yeah, you can go back to the 18-year-old state and know what the 45 or 44, however you are, knows right now.
Right.
That's so we can have our cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
My age is 13, by the way. It's not 18.
I love
I don't think I've ever matured over the age 13.
it.
But I can go back to that childlike state with the knowledge and what we call wisdom of today, where when I was 13, it was pure ignorance
Mhm.
that allowed me to do
Right.
things. But I don't need ignorance now. I just need wisdom. And I could still seat myself in that young person. And that's so I
Mhm.
can have that. I'm like, yeah, it's not over. It's fun. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, it's not. It's not over. Yeah, you can have that. You can start completely over and do what I did and just I've been on I finally kind of like settled. I got a rental house, then I got a steady job now instead of seasonal. But
Yeah.
I was untethered there for about 4 years. Like I just kind of like floated around. Like some of it wasn't intentional. Like I one of the jobs I took, I went to a motel in this tiny town of Stanford that's like an hour from here, like in the middle of nowhere.
That's so
Which
funny.
was great because I felt like I needed that. I felt like I just needed to get away from everybody and just do my own thing for a while. But then my boss, so I was by myself managing this place. Like I did all the maintenance and all the guest bookings and everything. But yeah, and he like moved to Kalispell because he didn't want to do the winter there. So,
Gee.
anyways, he ended up abandoning me. He just left. He just took off
It's like you're
and
running.
left his business, left me with a motel. Then I went to Wyoming. So I mean, I intended to stay there for longer than I did. I think I was only there for like 7 months
Mhm.
Yeah.
before he like took off. But
It to me, it's a very interesting story that
it
that
is.
hired. Like it's like, yeah, you know, it's
It
almost
is.
like a scene, like a movie. Like there's a motel out in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
right? Like
That's
it
exactly what
could
that
be a
is.
Stephen King story ready to brew up, but you know,
At the time, though, I think not him leaving me, but the solitude that I got was exactly what I needed. Like, I think I needed to get away from everybody too, and like, not specifically have a meltdown, but like if I needed to, like, people, I will hold it together if people are around. Like it's okay. I'm always trying to make it okay
yeah,
for everybody. Like,
yeah,
make them feel better. Like, I'm fine. It's okay. We're good. So I think just like going and being by myself for a long period of time, like helped me like work through a lot of stuff.
yeah.
Well said.
That's a cool
And I
experience.
know what you mean. There's something about that when you're alone with your thoughts and you're able to just focus. You don't have all these outwardly stimuli or problems you got to fix or things that you need to resolve. I know exactly what you're saying, and there's something freeing about that, and it allows you to kind of open up.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
yeah, we live in a world where we set up these circumstances where the our character has to obey this type of rule when we're around other people.
Hmm.
Hmm.
By ourselves, I could just change the character altogether.
All the time.
And
Yeah.
then yeah, and that's the cool thing. Then you start to learn to do that around people because you just simply like, okay,
That's all that
I
exists.
can act around people to where it doesn't make them uncomfortable because I don't want,
Hmm.
but it doesn't interfere with me either.
Yes.
That's the brilliance of it. Because before I'm like, okay, I'm doing this, and animosity would create it. I'm like, no, I can do this. I could do whatever, and not have it interfere anymore. And then once in a while, I'll do something a little wacky, and people are like, you gotta keep them off guard,
Yeah.
you know,
Gotta,
you'll
gotta
you'll
keep
say
people on their
something, yeah,
toes.
keep them on the toes. But but not, just got more of a playful way. But I found myself realize like I am comfortable whether I'm by myself or in crowds of people. My internal guidance system will tell me when I should be by myself, when I should be in front of people. So I don't think about when this is the right moment or right time anymore. It just
Yeah.
comes. When I start to think that, I get a flipping headache.
Yeah.
I really do. And I realize I'm in my head right now, and then I start laughing. My wife's like,
Yeah.
"What?" I'm like, "Eh." Like I'm not going down that road. So I have these
Too
bursts of
much.
laughter, and she's like, "What the hell's so funny?" I'm like, "If you heard what's going on in my head, you would laugh."
No, yeah, same with mine. Like it's kind of like this. Sometimes I have like arguments in my head, like back and forth, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, "What are you doing?" Like,
Never won those arguments.
Yeah, that's the real question.
I almost won an argument in my head, and then the other one came back. I'm like, all right, I'm done. I'm out.
yeah, yeah. It's an endless loop. It could go on forever. Like you can't.
But that's the awareness, and
Yeah.
that's what's so cool about this journey is like you start to become aware of that, and you're like, and then you start to identify with the awareness and less with the voice that you thought you were, this ego, this character, this identity you've created, where I should be upset about this, and this isn't going the way that I had planned. Who planned? Who is I that you're talking about?
Yeah.
This character that is playing this role right now, right here. And it's like, oh wow. And the more we step back from that, the more we like, we can feel it. That detachment feels right. Things start to kind of flow again, using our water analogy, because the river analogy used in the beginning was great because that's also how time works. Time is
Yeah,
this flowing river, and you have the ability to jump out and jump back upstream, come back. I mean, like we were taught we were taught a version of time, and not really how time works because time comes down to how we observe something and where our
right.
attention is and how we focus. And so, what we're all calling time and following is more like just this long running story about, you know, what happened on this date and these things here. And we're taught to be a very limited version of ourselves. And it's
Yeah,
like, no, you can't, change the role you're playing because you have to tell the person about everything you experienced in high school and then middle school and then, all the trauma you had with your parents. And
yeah,
it's like we've created this like this storybook character that you're not allowed to evade. In fact, you've got to keep it and you've got to, struggle with it and you can't just change in a moment's notice. And that's not what this was designed to be. That's not what this experience is, Every moment our heart is beating, every step that we're taking, every time we walk outside, it's like it's rendering this experience that we're calling reality, but the rendering is based on our frequency. It's based on what we're expecting. It's based on what we're looking for. And so it's not quote unquote real. There is no
right.
absolute reality outside of us that we're taught there is. It's just it clicks for you that, oh, it's not really like that. That's just how I've
Right.
been experiencing life this whole time. This absolute world outside of me is is a different absolute world for Carrie, a different absolute world for Frank, but we're all pretending it's this absolute world outside of us.
Yeah, that we're all supposed to agree on.
Yeah,
Like,
that we're
Yeah.
that we're all supposed to
That
agree and be the
that's
same.
that's where the funny part is. So
yeah.
Frank, let me ask you, when you get into these places where you're drifting, do you have any certain modalities, processes, or you just allow yourself to let go and fall in, that you can, share with the audience as well?
Great
Because a lot
question.
of times
So
people,
with
yeah,
not specifically with drawing and painting, because it's always something I've been able to do. It's strange. And I don't know how I get into it. Like I said, like I can just sit in front of it and then I get hooked in. Like then I start seeing like, oh, I need to do this over here or this needs to happen. So that I don't know. I think it's just I just get sucked into it. Like it's just on. Everything else though, like before this, like this the fact that I'm on camera is kind of a big deal because I used to be really, really camera shy, like
Oh my
really
gosh.
bad.
I
Like,
would never have guessed that
yeah,
ever.
oh, so there was an art show when I started doing art shows, which was a big deal because I'm not a public speaker. Um, I always I did well like in high school because I did so much extra credit, but I wouldn't do oral reports. But I
Oh,
just do extra credit to make it up. Like I just read a lot of books. Um, and then so my first one of my first art shows, I have a friend that wanted to take a picture of me in front of the booth, and I didn't know what to do with my arms, and he kept trying to take a picture, and then he's like, "What is wrong with you?" Like I
So
was like, "I
his
don't know."
drawing.
Like it was
trying to
like
put
the Talladega Nights thing.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I was just thinking that in my head. That's so funny you said that.
now you can watch a
What do
YouTube
I do
and
with
it'll
my
tell you what
hand?
to do with your arms, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, now that exists.
Yeah, 'cause I don't know what to do with my arms either when I'm
Yep.
still
No,
in
I
place.
don't. I'm always like, where do they go? Like
Yeah,
I put them in front. Like what happens here?
yeah.
So yeah, and the one time, like at another art show, there was a guy going around interviewing people, and he came to me, and I totally froze. So it's been something I kind of worked on. Like,
Right.
it COVID happened, or it helped with that though, because everything had to be Zoom. So,
Yeah.
and then I just had to get used to, as an artist, like people want to see you,
Hmm.
people want to know about you.
You want to hear your story?
So I just kind of had to get over it. I just figured if I just keep doing it, I'll get over it.
Yeah.
Like I'll just get used to it. I'll acclimate.
Yeah.
So
That's a great process. I like it. If you just keep doing it.
yeah,
'Cause nothing-
it's uncomfortable,
Yeah.
but like
Yeah.
eventually it becomes normal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Well, just so you know, hats off to you. I would have never guessed that. You're extremely comfortable this entire time in, the
okay.
whole conversation. I would have never guessed that, you know? And it's
Yeah.
funny, like how we have those stories and we hold those. And each of us has something like that in our own different way too. That at least that's what I've realized, talking with so many different individuals and stuff like that. Same thing like with the why the art side of things came so naturally to you, where
Mhm.
somebody else that might be, a tennis racket or, a baseball bat or whatever. It's just so funny how there's these certain things that just flow for us. And then there's certain things where it's like, oh, okay, I learn, I stumble, I learn, I
Yeah.
stumble.
Yeah, some things are super easy. A weird thing about like my art education is so I am self-taught. My mom was told not to put me in art classes
Oh,
Oh.
weird.
like as a kid
Yeah.
because they said I'd be influenced
Oh,
Oh.
by the teacher, which I did find later on because then I took art classes in college and I was in advanced art in high school and all that. And the teacher does usually generally push. Like my high school teacher, he was really great, but he only wanted modern abstract art.
Gotcha.
So if I do anything representative, he hated it.
Yeah.
So I had to do all abstract and
Yeah.
non-representative art.
interesting.
Art is a very interesting thing to teach if it can. You could teach technique, but you can't really teach
You
art.
can't teach art, and there shouldn't be rules. Like people get really hung up on. I think it's funny that like there's purists, like there's well, I paint in ink and acrylic on paper,
Okay.
and then I varnish it so it doesn't have to go behind glass. Like I mount it and varnish it.
Mhm.
But that process that I invented about mounting and varnishing knocks me out of a lot of water media competitions because they say it's not paper,
Mm.
but it is paper because it
So,
was made out of paper.
oh, wow,
So,
that,
anyways, so like it's not a, but so they get into this purist thing about like it's not the same, and I just have to say it's art. Like
yes. Yeah.
there are no rules. There's guidelines.
And
Like
you
there's
wouldn't
things
think
you can
artists
do.
would fall into that trap of that, you know? Is that interesting? Because
Yeah.
artists typically, but somewhere like there's something in the human conscious or subconscious that will still fall into this trap of it's got to be done this way. And
Categorization.
meanwhile, but like no one told, the artist that says that didn't follow that rule, by the way.
Hmm.
It's
Right.
yeah. So
That's
it
how
is,
you broke the rule. That's how we got here. That's how we
yeah.
like learned all the things that we've learned up till now, like about art and technique. And so yeah, you can learn technique and you can learn composition, although composition is not like I got hung up a long time ago about like I didn't know enough about composition, you know. And I anyway, so I started self-studying composition and the golden mean. Have you heard of that? Anyway, so you can use it in Photoshop. They have the golden mean in Photoshop that you can put it over like any picture.
Mhm.
So I thought, oh, I'll put it against some of my paintings and see how I'm doing. Oh, it was spot on every time. I was already doing it. Like I was already balancing things out naturally. I already knew. So then that's when I was like, oh, stop. You don't need to know.
Mhm.
Yeah, but that's true. Like, do you know anything about Jackson Pollock?
Yes.
Yeah, I found this information. It was really wild. So when you look at his paintings, like I remember when, like in the '80s, they became real popular again. I remember I
Yeah.
had a T-shirt that had his painting on it, and I just remember looking like it. It looks like what a tarp looks like after you painted your house.
Right.
But it didn't. And there was these students from MIT. They were measuring this thing. And what's interesting, what Jackson Pollock was able to do is, if it say it was a 4x8 canvas or whatever, and he lay them down, he do the drip painting. The sequence of fractals of parts of everything. If he took one corner out, like a 1 inch corner, and matched up to the rest, he maintained this flow
Hmm.
throughout. And they even try to create this metrodome type of system to do that, and it didn't even come accurate to what he did, and that was a machine.
Holy
Yeah.
crap.
Somehow he was able to maintain this frequency all the way through where it was perfectly even. That's why when we look at it, it doesn't look like the tarp that I just painted my house with. It,
Mhm.
there's
Right.
there's a flow to it, and that's why like how is this painting? Why is it drawing me in? Because there was something in the order of how the universe operates.
Yeah.
He just knew. And the stories were he was drunk half the time. Like, well, good for him.
He was in his zone.
It probably helped him
Yeah.
get out of his head. But
Yeah. But yeah, because you knew there was something about this painting that like, oh, anyone could do that. I'm like, no, not anyone could do that. But it wasn't
yeah.
a realism or something like that. It was, but then when I found that bit of information, I'm like, oh my God, okay, that's impressive. So the
Yeah.
same thing when you put the contrast up to it and you realize, oh, it's spot on.
Right.
You didn't even know
I
what
was
it was.
already doing it.
You
Like
already
I
knew.
hadn't, I didn't know, and there's tips and
Happened
tricks like with composition, like the rule of thirds and, like odd numbers for objects because people are more comfortable with odd numbers. And
Mm,
color plays a big factor on emotional, like red is a really aggressive color versus like green.
yeah.
That type of thing. So you can kind of play with, we manipulate people's emotions. Like that's what we do as an artist. Like we go in there and we want you to feel a certain way. But a lot of times it's just coming out of us anyways. Like it's not even intentional. It's just, I feel like red needs to be here.
Mm.
Like not, I can't even, artist statements are weird. You have to have an artist statement for a lot of your paintings. And a lot of times I don't know.
Yeah.
Some I do, some I'm like, I don't know why I did it. I just wanted to. It just is.
I imagine a lot of artists fall into that, but the world needs to know. So I'm like, yeah, let me make something up.
Yeah, so you kind of do. Like my sister is also an artist. She's a photographer. She does a lot of stuff like with SETI and she does like tintypes. Anyways, she does this crazy stuff over on the East Coast. But her and I were talking about artist statements, and we were like, it's kind of just a bunch of bullshit. Like we're just like saying big words to make it look like we're profound. Like,
It's funny.
You could start doing like what Prince did, just make a symbol.
Yeah.
yeah,
This is what it means. Like what?
this is what it means.
Uh,
One thing, Carrie, that you said just now that kind of like that I could relate to on a personal level. You were just talking about like how eh, we use colors, we use things to play with people's emotions and all of that. That one thing that like helped me on my journey, my awakening experience was like I learned that like marketing companies know this
Hmm.
information. And this, I remember going to school and taking marketing classes in college and things like that. And they would touch on these different things like the colors used, the phrases used, the call to action, the this, the that, how we can play with people's emotions, like you're talking about. And this helped me wake up to
Yes.
what I was experiencing, on a day to day, my day to day life, and my journey really began about a year and a half, 2 years before COVID, 2018, 2019. Okay, I started learning about these concepts, and it was like I felt like I was at a point in my life where COVID was almost like a hey, you gonna freak out about this, buddy? It was I don't want to say a challenge or like something
Yeah,
like that. It
it
was
was a challenge though.
yeah.
It really
I
was.
looked at it
It's
going,
scary.
holy shit, like I can be afraid right now, or I can, see the screen, this reality for what it is and what I'm experiencing, and I can go within. And and I kept doing that, and I kept going with it and
Mhm.
not letting the outside world, kind of dictate or tell me how I'm supposed to feel or what is the science and what is the this and that. And we're
Yeah,
just told so much, and so it's really cool to kind of hear you bring that up, like art and what we're experiencing in life is so the same. And this even going back to what we were just previously talking about a moment before that, which was like art, the way there's no right or wrong, there's no good or bad, like
right.
things are just kind of this neutral state, and then we assign the meaning to them. And that's very much so like what is in the art space, like what you're talking about, this is not the right way or the wrong way to do it, it just is.
It's
And
okay. Yeah,
we're all walking around trying to like identify and categorize art and like us as individuals and our gift and what we are here to perform. And this is why school is such, it's so funny when somebody's like, oh, I flunked out of school, I'm not worthy, I'm not good at anything. And it's that's absolutely ridiculous, just because we created this standardized test that
right.
if everybody doesn't fit in this little box, then they're not good or they're not valuable. And it's funny because it's like what you were just talking about with art is like what we're doing on a day-to-day basis with how we categorize everything,
It is.
money, gratitude, experience, our lives, our purpose, our self-worth. We like categorize it. And so I just figured I'd touch on that because it's cool seeing like what I'm witnessing come up in myself as you share your stories.
Yeah, well, and it's funny because yeah, I mean, once you know art, you can see that in marketing, how they emotionally manipulate you, and everything pretty much on a media scale.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
telling you how to feel, like even a movie, and they're trying to make you feel something because that's the message they're trying to put forward. So I get it, like on an artistic sense, I do it too, um, to that point. But I've always it's always bothered me like that I could feel an emotion because someone else wanted me to, like with marketing. Like, so you guys heard about that game Slender Man
no.
that came out a long time ago? Like it's a simple game. It's stupid. Like my kids showed it to me. And it's you're just like in this campground and it's dark and you have a flashlight. There's no music. You just hear gravel crunching as you're walking along, but there's this scary guy Slender Man in there and he like pops out and like makes you go crazy or something.
Okay.
Anyway, sounds stupid, but the way they do it and you can hear your heartbeat when you're playing it, like you're terrified. Like I kept playing it over and over again because I was like, this is dumb. Like, why am I afraid right now?
Right.
And I
Yeah.
was trying to like get over it because I was like, this is just a game and they're just engineering how I feel. Like my daughter and I kept playing it over and over again because we're like, why are we scared of this? Like,
It's funny
and
how
it was kind of brilliant. It kind of got like a cult following just because it was so
yeah.
crazy. Everybody started believing in the lore, like that it was the real thing. And anyways, it was
Ah,
a whole thing. But
that's so
um,
funny.
I always think of that because I always think how well, if someone does it really, really well,
Yeah.
and they can really take you for a ride.
But I think when we get sucked into stuff, it's, whether we're conscious of it or not, it's a time, it's an opportunity for us to transcend. And I think that's why the universe puts us there. So
I do too.
transcend it. Like, in other words, when I was a kid watching the movie Halloween was scary. Now it would be look like a comedy.
Right.
You know, like guys walking around with a hockey mask, right?
Hmm.
Seriously, and especially they don't even wear hockey masks like that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So I think that's why we keep going into it, and like because we want to transcend it, and when you're aware of the manipulation of the world, especially in the past or whatever, even now it's still working. It's the manipulation is to keep you in a frequency. And it's not that this particular frequency is bad, it's the inability to shift is what creates fear. So if you were in a room, say you were in a room like a 20 by 20, right? Pretty good sized room,
Hmm.
but you looked around, there was no doors and windows, you would panic
Hmm.
like nothing because there's no way out. But if you're in a room 20 by 20 and there's two doors, a bunch of windows, you can relax.
Right.
What set the part of the panicking? Like the inability to change the room, to change the frequency. So when people capture us into this setting, like you go to a horror movie, you're confined to this frequency.
Right.
So we like to do that. We like to. There's something about humans like to take even like when you're doing a painting, there is a limited amount of canvas in order to put the infinite understanding on it. So
Yeah.
there is something there that wants us to
There's,
create a limitation to experience this infinite. So even the fear is like this crazy thing, but it's limiting. But then like you turn it off and you start laughing with your children, like, oh my God, I can't believe that made me scared.
yeah.
Like, oh my God, like it's crazy, you know?
Well said.
But if
Can't
that was
believe I
your
just lost
life,
my mind over a game.
yeah, but
Yeah.
there's something fun about that. But then it helps elevate our frequency. So it's kind of like I don't know if you've ever heard the analogy I use, but when you look at frequencies, positioning, say, and you're in a building, say the building's 50 stories high, and in the building there's a basement.
Hmm.
So in each floor has its own frequency to it. Now, the thing about the basement, there's very little you can see. There's no window, say, in this particular, it's obviously in the basement. So whatever you see in the room is all that exists. But when you go to the first floor, what you see in that room is what exists, plus what the window approves outside. And that's even limiting. Now I go up to the 50th floor, everything in the room, plus the window, plus I could see the whole city. The
Right.
thing is, when you start to understand that, the basement can be really fun.
Yeah. Right.
I understand it now, where before it was like, what the, So that's kind of like how we play with it. It's understanding the structure of this frequency, where like, oh, I don't like the way I felt here. I'm never going to the basement. But then when you start to understand, the reason I didn't like the way I felt is because I thought that was all there was.
Right.
And then sometimes going into a dark room can be really nice.
Yeah.
But I realized I know how to get out.
Mm.
And that's
Yeah.
why we play the game. And that's that's the place I'm weaving in. And then there are days I forget. I'm like, how do I get out of this basement?
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard. I mean, when real life is coming at you and there's a lot of things, and media is designed to make us feel a certain way, like it's hard to remember that sometimes in the midst of.
so
When you're going
when
through
you
it.
get into that state of where that's hard to remember, do you have a particular thing you do, or you just allow it and then
I usually breathing,
Yeah.
breath work.
yeah,
And then like I disconnect, like I have to remove myself like from a phone or like not talk for a while,
gotcha.
you know. I have to let that train in my head like start to slow down, because like you get into this thing and it kind of makes me, I don't know how much you guys know about horses, but like they get to a state of panic where they stop thinking. If you push them to a point, they're gone. Like you're not gonna like stop them from running or whatever they're gonna do. They'll run themselves right through a fence because they're so afraid.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So our brains get that way where we're just like running out of control. So if you can just like take all external pressure off yourself for a little bit, you know, and just take a minute and let that slow down, then you'll start to really think where you're like, wait a minute now, like the sky isn't falling. Like if you just do this instead or look over there, then everything's like, oh, okay, okay, we're good. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Well
because
said.
when you get to a different frequency in the building, the outlook is different. So that's kind of
Mhm.
it's all about how do I get into a different state from where I just came from.
Yeah,
And that's why it's like if I get like upset or scared, I don't worry anymore because I know how to get into a different state.
right,
And sometimes I might just sit there. I'm like, okay, why am I scared? Like, what's going on? Like, okay, it's something I haven't dealt with. But in the past, I did everything to distract that. Uh,
right,
and it worked temporarily, very temporarily. But now it's kind of like, yeah. So people are like, oh, I still have these feelings. I'm like, good. They just, that will elevate you. But no, what can I do to mitigate that? What can I do to realize it's just a state you got caught in and you get out of it? That's all you need to know is I know I can get out of it. If I know I could get out of the room, I don't necessarily have to leave the room. Like,
Right. Well, and I've also noticed too, like when I really get into a state or there's something really wrong or I'm really freaked out or I don't know, in my head about something, shortly after, like after I have a meltdown or whatever it is, there's an aha moment.
yeah.
Like
Oh,
there's always the oh, you know, at the end, like there's always
oh,
a
right about
lesson to be learned, or you make a connection in your brain, or something happens where you're like, oh, okay, okay, and then you file it away for like later.
Yeah. Have you ever
Like,
felt
this is
yourself
what
going
happened.
into the meltdown, realizing something great's going to happen at the end? I just,
Yes, a lot of times I'm like, there'll be something good after this. Like,
yeah, yeah. And that's so it allows you, it's kind of like in the physical world, in order to go up, we must have to go down to elevate higher. Kind of like I use a skateboard.
yes, you have to go down to go up.
Yeah, and the more you embrace the down, the more you go up. So
Yeah,
it's like when the fear, I'm like, just embrace it and see what comes out of it. I didn't always have that mindset, so I wasn't embracing the going down. But now I embrace it. And like, yeah, so it never stops. But now the embracing of it actually adds. So going back to like the discomfort now when I'm choosing it or going with it, it always elevates me to a higher level. So
yeah,
that's why I don't want to say addicted to discomfort because I love comfort as well. I really do.
same.
I could sit on the couch like nobody's business, you know?
I love it.
But at the same time, I still have these fun games where I put myself in discomfort.
Hmm.
And there's it's a dance, right? It's kind of like,
It is.
yeah, it's a beautiful dance.
But I think yeah, it's kind of where expansion comes from too, though. Like I was told as an artist, because I think I said one time a long time ago, I was like, I wish I was just at the state where I was comfortable and just knew what I was doing and was just like banging out paintings. And they're like, you never want to be comfortable.
Yeah.
You never want to be comfortable as an artist because then you're not creating anything new and doing anything out of your scope. Like you're not being challenged.
Yeah.
Well, I always kind of remember that. And I think that's kind of in life too. Like we want to be comfortable. We want everything to be the same, but at the same time, not really. Like nothing new would ever, nothing would ever come of anything. We wouldn't have to invent something out of like necessity, like when you're in it and like something went terribly wrong and then you have to figure it out. Like those are the best times sometimes. Like you're terribly stressed, but then at the end you're like, oh my God, I did that. Like, look at
Yeah.
that. I pulled it off. Like,
Yeah. There are people who had accounts of like situations like, say, a fire in their house.
mhm.
Um, the when a fire happens in your house, it's never happened to me. So, but I can only imagine you are so focused, and you wouldn't call this a happy time. And you get everyone in the house, you get all this stuff, and you make it. All of a sudden, there's this weird elation going on because you were focused for a period of time because nothing else mattered.
Right.
Nothing else mattered. And all of a sudden, it's weird because you're not supposed to feel good, but you do.
Hmm.
So you don't. Some people don't even have to express that. Um, but yeah, so it's like, okay, when I could go into something and keep my heart rate down, that's why, people who are first responder types, they're already there. It's like they could be talking to themselves when they're going through that. This is how we want to live life. We want to put ourselves, the world will do it anyway, we don't have to. Put ourselves in a position where focus is our best friend. Where if
Yes.
everything was perfect, you wouldn't really need to be focused, but then it's like, this is boring.
Right.
Yeah, it's weird. So the world is almost like, oh, I just want to be relaxed today. I'm like, oh, you shouldn't have said that.
Hmm.
Yeah. Because you won't be for sure.
Because the fact that I say I want to be relaxed means I'm not there. And
Yeah.
and then the wife comes home. It's like, oh shit.
I think this type of conversation, is very helpful for people
Yeah.
listening because it's
Right.
like we all go through this daily, and this is something we're all experiencing, and we're narrating it in our heads, and we're experiencing it, and when we can laugh about it, when we can smile about it, when we can understand it,
Yeah.
that like awareness, it does make it exciting, and it makes it something that's like an enjoyable experience. And now it's not something like you're like, "Ah, another day, like what the fuck, like I got to do
Yeah.
this." it
Yeah.
it takes that grind out of it, and you begin to actually have gratitude for the grind, like you're talking about,
Yeah.
which is like
Yeah.
you have the sense of gratitude, like, oh, without that, would I experience this bliss that I cherish
Yeah.
so much?
Yeah.
Would it be that same level of bliss? Would I still love it? Would it's there's so many great things that, I feel like none of us would give up because it also comes with things that aren't so great and do sting and are hurt, and do hurt. And, the way we experience them, we wouldn't call them fun or exciting, but sad, painful, suffering, all of these. And it's like, wow, this really is a reflection. This really is a yin yang experience.
Yeah,
It
because
is.
yeah,
Yeah.
like
Suffering has its own purposes. Like I've accepted that that's just how it is. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. I kind of like went on a thing about suffering for a while, like where I read a lot of stuff about it. And there's a purpose to it. Like it's not evil. It's not there to break you or make you less than you are. It's just it's there to teach you, you know. And why how would we ever know how things are good if it wasn't bad?
yeah,
Like how
yeah,
would you
yeah.
know that relief at the end?
And in that case, like when you understand suffering is part and parcel of the game, you then don't suffer in the mind.
Right.
That's that's like the level of people like, yeah, I'm like, yeah, you're doing these things are uncomfortable to the physical body, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in the mind. And when you become uncomfortable in the mind, you're going to open up to a new whole understanding of the mind.
Yeah.
It is this dance, and the more you do it, you realize, hey, this thing that used to be like dreadful is no longer dreadful. It's kind of like it's weird. It's like my best friend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Then another level comes because every level we go to, there's another acclamation in which we have to appropriate our system to. It never ends.
It never ends.
So that's funny because you can look at life like this never ends, or I'm like,
Right.
or this like this never ends.
Great.
It's the position you say you were in when you look at that way, like to a child at a like at Disneyland and say this park will never close is exciting, but if they're in the test room, oh, this is never going to end. What?
Yeah. Wait.
Like, why am I doing this? And but when you get used to this up and down, you realize, man, this is never going to end, and I like it. That also helps you realize I can handle it. Because that's
Uh-huh.
I find a lot of people that I work with and talk to, their problem is they don't think they can handle it. I'm like,
Yes.
yeah, you can. You can handle it. And once you know you can handle it, it's like you don't purposely hurt yourself, right? But things are going to happen. And then you're like, but I can handle this.
Yep.
And that's when the hero in us comes out or the miraculous comes out of us. And that's the story everyone tells is that little tragedy that happened to them and everything built around it. And it came to this point of here I'm talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
And those things in everyone's life, they only happen momentarily.
Yeah, they're just brief. I mean, you get past it. Like it seems in the time that like you're always going to feel this way and
Yeah.
it's always going to be crappy
No.
and like everything sucks from here on out.
Yeah.
But like when you get past it, like I'm way past what happened with me, and various other things that have happened in my life.
Yeah.
And while I know they happened, um, I mean, I can't say like it was all terrible at the time, but I really like where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Because
Mm-hmm.
you learn to let go. Some
Yeah.
people store things. It's like if you were like say like 2020 for you was running through a rose garden and a bunch of thorns hit you. What you've done is just pull the damn thorns out.
Yeah, you don't let them stay there and then just like go, look
Ah,
at this thorn.
and
Like,
that's where 90% of the world is at.
Yeah,
let's talk about this thorn that I won't take
Yeah.
out. Like,
but yeah, now I can't sleep on my back because I got some on my back, so now I have to sleep upright. So you try to mitigate your life by changing the outside world. I'm like, well, that doesn't work. I'm like, and someone comes along, I'm like, why don't you just pull it out?
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just take it out. Like,
Yeah, you don't
just
forget running through the rose garden, but you don't have the memory of the pain anymore.
right.
Because the thorn is gone, and like so. It's like, okay, once I get stuck with something, I pull it out now. I don't let it sit there and create an apparatus around it so I can get on with life. And every time someone bumps into that damn thing, like, what are you doing? It's like, well, back in 2020, I ran into a thorn. So you got stay on my left side, get away from my right side. And that's kind of how I was living my life. And I'm like, I
Same.
need to get rid of these thorns.
This is how we all operate,
Yeah.
putting that like guard box up and saying, "Hey, what are you doing? You're
Yeah.
you're hurting me."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't you tell that, I've got this that I've been holding on to, and that person
No,
has no
no.
idea what they're doing or affecting you, but we get so involved with it, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, it narrows everything down so much, like then you stop experiencing new things because you put yourself in this tiny box where like I just stay in my house and I don't go do anything because when I went and did that thing, like this is what happened. And so you just have to let things happen.
Yeah.
Like bad things are gonna happen, great things are gonna happen. Like
That's
it's just gonna happen. Things are gonna happen.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
and the what you said about people don't believe that they can get through it. I found that yes, believing in yourself is a big thing
Yeah.
to do with how you get through it.
And then the cool thing is once you've done enough times, it goes from a belief to a knowing.
Right.
Like
Well,
I
and that's
know.
what I tell myself when things get like rough or like maybe money gets tight or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh yeah, you've been here before, like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you'll be out of it. Like,
Yeah.
just hold on. It's just a shitty time period. Just
Yeah. It's a time to do
it'll
something
pass.
different than whatever.
Right. Go do something different or
Yeah.
something.
So as you see and feel, because you're an artist, so you feel, um, what do you feel that's coming up in your future, or do you even think in those terms, or
I
um,
do and I don't. Like I always hated like the interview question that was like, "What's your 5-year plan?" or "Where do you see
Yeah, right.
yourself in 5 years?" I'm like, I don't know. What?
somebody asked me that one
Can't you
time. I'm
the
like,
moon? Like,
I'll tell you my plan in 5 years
Exactly.
when I get there.
right. I could have said that when I was younger. I believe I answered those questions. You know what I mean? Because I was like, driven, and I see myself in an interior design firm, and now I'm
Yeah,
like,
like
yeah. Well, no one saw the market crash or any of this other stuff, so I don't know. I'm kind of doing some new stuff. I've been painting on wood. I've been doing a little bit more wildlife.
okay,
Interesting.
I
Cool.
haven't totally strayed from horses. I like to paint wild horses mostly
all right,
instead of domesticated horses. That'll still continue. I'm branching out a little bit though in other areas,
all
but
right.
still love ink. Like I fell in love with ink probably about 12 years ago. Like I started playing with it because I love Japanese and Chinese art. I
Nice.
like the way they do things and how they see things, and everything has like this weird, it's not a perspective, but it is.
Yeah,
I don't- Anyways, I had like a bleed and I thought, oh, that's cool when the ink bled off to the side, and then started trying to like make it happen. So I kind of, that's how my paintings are. Like they're ink that like the ink does something, then I do something. So I'm trying to make it go in a direction, but also do what it wants to do at the same time because it's,
oh, all right.
makes little beautiful patterns. So that's all within my paintings. Like if you look really close, you'll see all these crazy little ink bleeds that are
That's cool.
It's a journey on itself. It's
it is. It
yeah.
is. It
It's
is. So I love ink just because of its flow and it kind of just, like I said, does what it wants to do.
you imagine
Um,
you try to control the ink, how miserable you'd be.
Yeah, right. Well,
yeah,
that's
if I was trying to make it behave like oil paints or something, then
Good luck.
I'd be very mad. Like, and I know a lot of people that, like, I have a lot of artist friends, like I have a couple friends that do scratch board.
Mhm.
So, or it's like clay board, and it's like a board with clay on it that's covered in black. And then you take like little scratching tools, like little pens and stuff, and you remove it.
oh, cool.
So, like, if they do ant wildlife and stuff, you have to put every hair pattern on there. Like, every tiny detail goes on there. It takes them hours and hours and hours. Like, I can't do that. I hate detail work. Like, once it comes to the end of my paintings, when I have to sit down and do detail work and it's not like broad strokes and crazy stuff, then I'm like, I hate it. Like,
You know when you're done. That's why. Yeah.
and that's the other hard thing is knowing when you're done.
Yeah.
Like, and every artist will say that, like,
Yeah.
knowing, because you can go too far, you can go way too far, like, and just wreck it. You can also not go far enough. Like, so knowing when you're done is hard.
That is life right there. That's a
Yeah.
perfect way.
That is
Knowing
perfect.
when to put the pen down or whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah.
Mhm. But yeah, all right,
Know when to kind of hold it, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
It's
Yeah.
funny how everything that we've been talking about today is just such like a compliment to how life flows, you
yeah.
know. And so
Yes.
I think what's so special about our interview with you today is just how many commonalities, you know, how many things that we can relate to, you know, this art experience that you're discussing and sharing with us, as well as this physical experience that we're all
Yeah.
calling, you know, reality, that we're all participating in, all, you know, having our own little versions of. And, you know, the hundreds of perspectives, you know, the infinite perspectives that are all around us at all times. And so I love hearing this, because I know there's going to be so many people are like, that's just like this. That's just
Yeah.
like this experience, what you're describing with your art.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody it's all really is the same thing. Like I realized that when I was painting, and I realized that it was all kind of like connecting, and I was like, I wish I could like apply this in my outside life or over here or in here, you know. Yeah, we're all kind of doing the same thing and seeing the same thing, and even though we're doing different stuff. And I love hearing other people's perspectives, and I love knowing other people's stories.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Because yeah, and that's what inspired me to write you, because I heard a couple people and I was like, oh, that's the exact same thing. Like I totally get that. You know, that's a
Yeah. And we're really glad that you emailed us. So
I was gonna say
appreciate it.
it's this type of conversation is
Yeah.
like what we like
Live
thrive on.
for. Yeah.
Yeah, this is exactly what we love, which is a general, you know, conversation. Like we're
yeah,
all experiencing this. Here are you, you know, all the way in Montana doing your thing, you know, the different twists, turns, you know, throughout your life, especially these last 4 or 5 years, you know.
yeah.
And same thing over here from Arizona and what's going on and what's changing. But we can all find that commonality, that consciousness that brings us all back home. You know, it's like
That's zero
coming
point. Yeah.
back, yeah, back to the
Yeah.
sun, you know, and we're all just these rays. And it's cool because it gives people hope, and it lets people know like, hey, this experience wasn't all that we were told it is.
No,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was not. And I love it that we can chat about this. Like I don't have a lot of people that I can talk to.
I know what you
Really.
mean.
Yeah, it's a limited um spectrum there on that, or a limited amount of people. So I hope that changes in the future,
It
you
will.
know, to
Yeah.
have these types
Yeah.
of
More individual,
conversations.
I've noticed a change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
more people.
And I think like the more people like you out there that go into self-inquiry and, you know, give your attention to your how you feel, which enables you to express it through art or whatever it is, doesn't matter. Even being kind to somebody. The more we do that, the easier it is for others to attach to it. It's a frequential system. It's kind of like a black hole will draw
Yeah.
everything into the universe from it, just like a vacuum does. And the more we, it's kind of like I don't hold myself accountable per se, but I do at some level. So the more I maintain in this higher state, regardless of what's happening, right? It it actually helps those around me to a degree in which I will never know.
I
Be-
agree. It has a
Because
cumulative
yes,
effect.
somebody out there is doing it for me, and I may never meet that person too.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So it's not that I'm doing something. I'm allowing things to come through me, and the more I allow the energy to flow, and when the energy's flowing and you're in a situation that kind of sticky, it almost feels better, you know? Like if I feel good and it's freezing out, like that's even better than if I feel good if it's 72 degrees out. Like it's,
Yeah.
like it's easy to feel good at 72 degrees, but how can I feel good this way? I'm like, wow, because you're allowing it to flow regardless of what the external circumstance are happening. And then it's like what I've noticed is I don't work at it anymore. It just naturally comes because
Yep.
I know it comes. So it's like, yeah, I need to breathe less. I need to meditate less. But in the beginning, I did more, you know. But then over time, it's like, oh my God, this is just life unfolding,
Hmm.
and I'm getting out of its way now. Yeah,
Yeah, that's the thing. Get out of its way.
yeah,
I mean, just let it. We have some control, like we get to make, we have free will, but at the same time,
yeah,
there's a bigger actor at play that I can't say what it is. Like I tried to be an atheist for a while when I was young, just
yeah.
because I have weird
Tell me.
religious, like my grandma was Mormon, and
Yeah.
just got weird.
Yeah.
But I couldn't deny that there was something bigger.
Yeah.
Like you can't deny, especially when you look at nature, especially when you look at nature.
Yes.
Like that's impossible that this wasn't designed, that
Yeah.
there's not a bigger, and some things that happen in your life that just
That's
couldn't
what,
have planned.
which I was like, there's just certain situations you come into where you're like, no way.
But it isn't
Yeah.
interesting. There's something in us that knows that, but the human mind can't conceive it.
Yeah.
That's the brilliance of it. There's something that we know when something's not going right.
Hmm.
Oh yeah.
But what knows that is the thing I seed myself in, that
Yeah.
witnesses all it. And then, and that's where it started. And I'm like, wow, okay, something knows it, but can't, the human mind, it's like a certain language that we can't translate properly.
Yeah, I can't express.
Yeah.
Like think about the paintings you do. The feeling was so greater than the painting, but the painting is as close as you can get to that, you know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but it's not complete, but yet, all
That's
right,
as close. Yeah. That's as close as,
closest I
because
can
the
come to the
human
eye right
language
now.
is inadequate. Like all
Very,
languages are inadequate to express emotion.
yeah.
Because there's so many. You're not just sad. I mean, you're a lot of things,
Yeah.
like you're
Yeah.
mad, and
Mhm.
it's too complicated to even say. Like, so you paint it, you know, you just
And
express, or music. Music is a really good.
yeah, and yeah, everyone can feel it, but that's what tells a story. But yet, there's something inside of everyone that knows what that is.
Hmm.
But once we think we have to understand it, I think that starts down the road.
And I'm hoping today's conversation, for people listening, they realize, these feelings that we're talking about, this is the canvas we call life being painted right in front of us with the different experiences we're having when we're walking out the door or we're interacting with, strangers on the street or our loved ones, our, romantic partners, our parents, our family members. This frequency that where we're coming from, how, we're experiencing absolutely affects this screen, this
Yeah.
canvas that we call life. And that that change can be so powerful. I know it was in my life, and it was like the greatest feeling. It was like finding the skeleton key to life and realizing, wow, you know, this doesn't have to be shitty. This doesn't have to be hard.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
perspective onto this has always been shitty hard. And that changed the world for me. So I'm
Well,
hoping
that's
that
what we were taught. Like grind, grind, grind.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like this is like loved my grandfather. Like he's the one who probably taught me how to be in the moment the most. But at the same time, like it was also the viewpoint. Like he worked for the city for 30 years. You know what I mean? Like you just go to a job and that's what you do, and you might hate it, and that's just how it is. And he also said, I never had any money, so why the hell would I want any now? Which is kind of I like.
Yeah.
But he also like had this great knowledge of like going out in nature. He was a big fly fisherman. He was a big hunter. He'd take me out and he'd like catch fish and then let me look at all the colors
Yep.
on the scales, like when you catch a rainbow trout or something, or like brown trout are really pretty too. Um, and he'd just point things out. And he always encouraged me and like bought me art supplies. He's the one who told me about Charlie Russell, our famous artist and local artist, Western
Okay.
artist.
All
So
right. Well,
Isn't
that
it funny how we have moments like that?
well,
That's so
that's
cool.
those are great because he showed you an experience, not just
yeah.
an intellectual.
So it's weird because I kind of had both. So I had like the living in uh, like the best frequency you possibly could, like out in nature and everything, you know what I mean? But then real life sucked and you were supposed to grind and
Yeah.
you're just always going to be here.
Yeah.
So getting past that and realizing that it's all that it's all like if I can have it like when I'm sitting at work, feel the same way as I am out in nature if I just let it be and get like caught up in the moment.
That that is the gift.
That is
That
exactly
is
it.
the gift because it allows you to be where you are.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And fully.
Yeah.
and the more you're in that moment, the more here and now that you are, that's how you come. That's your most natural state.
Yeah.
That's what this conversation's about. That's what this podcast is about.
Yeah.
Is coming back to that most natural state. And Carrie, you definitely were a perfect person to illustrate
Yeah.
this. No pun intended with your beautiful art, but literally you are. You live it on a day-to-day basis. What you're sharing, with the audience is, I know, going to resonate because we've all gone through similar stuff. And just the way you talk about your art, how this mimics reality is just, it's just so funny and so on the
Isn't
nose
it?
and like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's so perfect.
Yeah. Like when the ink spills, follow it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great
Just follow
example.
it, and then use your direction within that follow. I
And
love
it's fun.
that
Yeah.
because, like, I would do sketches and stuff years ago. I'm nowhere near the talent as you, because so I have like a little bit of that in me. But yeah, the whole like watching something, like I pictured like this ink just flowing, and you just following it like a surfer follows a wave,
Hmm.
and you carve within that. I'm like, huh, like the way you explain that, I can see how you painted that horse.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can like direct it to
Now
a
I'm gonna go
point
look at
that
the
you,
horse completely different.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
yeah, it just adds another layer to something that was already deeply layered. Yeah.
And I'm sure you are like really great at drawing, and everybody downplays their own talent in that area. Um, I don't know. Everybody acts like I was born with it and like it just came to me, like I did put a lot of work. It's an obsession.
Yeah.
I mean, I got good at it because I'm obsessed with it, because I got obsessed with how the light falls on something and how to represent that on a piece of paper,
Exactly.
like, so it's more of an obsession than anything. And it's probably just because as a kid I could see that way, like I'm super visual. I
Mhm.
actually wish I could just project images to people instead of say words, because it would
Yeah.
just be
It'd
way
be nice if
easier to see
technology
what's in
one
my
day would
head.
be able to do that.
But
Like, what
I noticed teaching people, like you can tell where even kind of their personality types, where they get like really hung up.
Mhm.
Like I've done classes where we've just kind of done a basic paint and pour type of thing where everybody's going to paint the same thing. But my rules are there are no rules,
Mhm.
and that you don't have to match me and you don't have to do what I'm doing if you don't want to. And if you want to add something or take something away or whatever, like do it. It's your painting. Don't ask me if it's okay. But some people get all hung up like mine doesn't look like yours and doesn't look like my neighbor's. And then I have other people that just went way off the map and just did crazy stuff. And I just like it because you can just see how people are and kind of where even they got hung up in life a
Yeah.
little bit, like some people are super free and some people just get way too in their heads. And I'm just like, it's not important though. Like, we're not doing anything serious here. Like, this is fun.
And that's a lot coming
That's
from
what life
you,
is too.
from someone like you with the great talent you have with the medium of painting and art, where somebody hearing that coming from you, it would ease them up. And that's kind of
Yeah.
all I'm here to teach. It's just let go and allow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want other people to paint like me. I want them to paint like them.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
They
That,
have something to say, like they might like the way I paint, but it's just, I tried to paint like people that I admired too, and it didn't work out. And I never understood why it wouldn't, like why it turned out terrible. And
That's how
then
I
it's
felt. I
because
went
it's
the
not
first 30
me.
years of my life.
yeah.
I was trying to paint somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that painter already exists. So why? Yeah.
Yeah. So what, I mean, you do learn that way. Like when you're first start learning technique and everything, you can really learn by copying. Like that's for sure. And it's fun to go around and kind of like deconstruct a painting, like kind of like take it apart to see how they put it together and what they did.
Yeah.
But you still can't paint like them. Like even though like my mediums changed over the years, you can still kind of tell it's me because I use the same really flowy lines. I don't have a lot of sharp lines and jagged edges. So you can kind of still tell it's me, even though they're kind of wildly different in the same way.
Yeah.
See, that's
Yeah.
beautiful. So, Carrie, where can people find more about you? Where can they see your art? I want to make sure that we give people listening the ability to actually check out your work that we're talking about too.
So, Carrie Kohles Fine Art on Facebook, Carrie Kohles on Instagram, TikTok too,
Oh,
and
nice.
then www.carriekohles.com
Okay,
is my
perfect.
website.
How do you
Web-
spell Colas, just for those listening?
Kohles.
All right.
And Carrie is Carrie, like the Stephen King book.
Yeah.
I love it. We're gonna put all the details, to your website,
Yeah.
your gallery, all of that in the actual body of this post as well. And we'll be
Perfect.
sharing clips with you.
Exciting.
Know today is going to resonate with a lot of
Yeah.
people because today was like a perfect example for me, and just what I'm going through on my end. And like this
I
conversation
love
couldn't
that.
have came at a more perfect time for me and in my experience. And it's
Good.
so funny how this falls into place and works. Like I felt like I was absolutely supposed to speak with you today.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me on. Because actually, weirdly, I've been feeling like I need to tell my story. I don't,
Yeah.
like I said, I'm not a super public person. So, like, even on Facebook, like, most people just don't know. Like, I don't post my problems. You know
No,
what I mean? So, most people don't even know what my life has been like or anything or things that I've gone through or done. So, I kind of felt recently, though, that like people need to hear
good.
Yeah.
what has gone on and like what I've done and how I've dealt with it. So you guys kind of gave me a really good platform
Yeah.
to
Good.
like
Yeah.
start talking about it in a
With our
more
honor.
public way.
Yeah. And you help us out the same. So
Exactly.
Good.
yeah.
Couldn't be better.
I
Yeah.
was gonna say it'll be fun when we have you back on the show because I'm sure
Oh,
that
I would love that.
you know
I would love that.
it's funny how your story is going to impact a few different listeners in their own way. Maybe they reach out to you and tell you about what they're
I
going
love
through. It's very cool to see how like these different webs get woven, and how like our pattern came into your pattern at the time it did.
Yeah. It's like every one of us has a brushstroke on this
Yep,
tapestry called life.
Yes.
And
that's exactly it.
we often think, am I painting it properly? I'm like, absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I
it's
think,
always right. There are no mistakes.
yeah.
Like,
The only thing we ever do wrong is thinking we're doing something wrong.
Yeah, that's the best
Yeah. That's
best way
it.
to say it.
Yeah.
that's so perfect to say. Like you're 100%.
Yeah.
That's
100.
exactly it. Well, Carrie, we hope that you stay warm over there in
Yes.
Montana. It's cold here
I
in the
got a
desert.
fire roaring in the other
Yeah.
room.
Good. So stay warm.
Yeah.
We wish you all the best and
Thank
health,
you.
success,
Yeah.
abundance in 2025. This year is going to be a great year.
Yes, it
And
is.
I'm sure we'll be back in touch with you very soon. And we'll be keeping in touch as well.
Yeah. All right.
Excellent. Thank you guys.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much,
much for
Gary.
joining us.
All right. It was great, great conversation. Loved it.
Love it.
All right.
Loved
Thanks,
it.
Carrie.
Bye.
See you soon.
Bye.